Hello and welcome to today's webcast on best practices for migrating to Windows 7. Brought to you by Information Week, Dell, and broadcast by United Media Business Media LLC. This is Anand Narasimhan, Marketing Manager for Client Solutions at Dell. We have talked about different topics of Windows 7 migration in the past. We always get questions on how Dell is going about our migration to Windows 7. Thank you very much for your questions. We put this webcast together based on your feedback. With two people from Dell IT who are responsible for Windows 7 rollout within Dell, and another person from Dell Services who has helped many companies start their Windows 7 migration. There's also going to be a short video clip of an interview with Dell's CIO, which pretty much encapsulates Dell's move to Windows 7, or basically our strategy for Windows 7 migration. We want to make sure that this event is as interactive as possible, so I'd like to make a few announcements before we begin. There are elements of this webcast that will appear as pop-ups, and we want to make sure that you can view them. At this time, we recommend you disable any pop-up blockers if you have not already done so. This webcast includes audience polling questions, so when you're ready to ask a poll, you'll see questions appear in your slide presentation window. You may complete the polls when they appear by selecting your answer within the presentation window and then clicking the Submit Answer button. Thanks in advance for your participation. Speaking of participation, you can join our interactive Q&A session at the end of the event by submitting your questions at any time during the webcast. Just type your questions in the Ask a Question text area below the media player window and then click the Submit button. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event. If you'd like, you can download the copy of the slides by clicking on the Download Slide button located below the presentation window. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please click on the Help link, and our people will be there to help you. There's also a number posted within the guide. Now, part of the best practices presentation, we have Minaugh and Warren Byle, system engineers for Dell at Dell IT, who are responsible for the rollout of Dell Windows 7 internally. Chris and Warren have extensive experience in IT area and user-centric solutions, and they're here to talk about how they have performed their task. Also joining us will be Phil Dacus, Global Solutions Architect and User Computing Group. He has more than 10 years of experience supporting hardware and software deployments in large enterprise customer environments for both campus and remote users. He's currently involved in helping customers in the area of optimized PC deployment, imaging, application management, and flexible computing. With that, we move over to the short video clip and go from there on.
Robin, it's interesting what you said about the role that Win 7 can play as an employee morale tool in some ways. So, and also you sit in an interesting position because with Microsoft's technology adoption program, Dell's both a partner as well as a customer. How's that going?
For us, it's fantastic. We got to get involved very early through the TAP program. We were able to work with Microsoft. Probably the best. So we did all the usual development stuff you would expect me to answer, but I think the key thing was, back to this thing of your expectation and the Stone Age question, I kind of liked how you thought about that. The key thing for me is, by the time Microsoft released the final version, we were ready to go with a self-install pack. We'd had our service teams through it. So we've rolled out about 13,000 seats so far. We're rolling out about 400 a week. And the other thing, just to how you think about IT, we sort of got a pull methodology as opposed to a push. So even down to giving people the choice of when they move and let it become sort of organic in the organization as opposed to IT imposing, here's your upgrade date. I think that helps us hugely. So for us, the partnership with Microsoft and working with Microsoft has been absolutely superb. We've loved that. And it's given us, I think, a real advantage in terms of, one, being ready, two, staying current, or the perception of staying current. And having used it, I've been on Win 7 for a little while now. It is a much cleaner, it's a better experience. I think the operating system itself, they just did a very good job of, there's enough familiarity.
Right.
Equally, it's clearly a different experience and an easier experience. So I think in all those aspects, it really helps us deliver day one back to Sunday night. Yeah. You can buy it in Best Buy or wherever. You can get it in the office Monday morning. And that's huge.
Yeah. And Robin, among some of your customers, are you seeing a similar approach to the uptake there? Is it sort of where they're allowing their users to dictate a little bit or have a hand in the decision of when this happens?
I think that everyone has a slightly different approach. The key things I would say customers talk about are managing the cost of managing the environment and the cost of upgrading. And there's studies out there that would tell you it costs between $500 to $700 to upgrade. Now, you think about $500, $700 today and the cost of a PC, that's pretty... So the work we've done on this sort of self-service upgrade, which we've got a model for both in-office and out-of-office, that dictates the pace. The cost dictates the pace. Mm-hmm. It's very, very important you've managed your client base. You know what's out there in terms of the client base. Two, so here's an example. We have about 100,000 devices, client devices. Before we upgraded, we did a big cleanup program, right? Make sure we had the right devices, we had the right software licensed on them, and we have tools that help our customers do that. Second thing, application compatibility and application packaging compatibility. You've got some work to do there. And then the third thing, everyone has a different methodology. For me, one of the keys in managing this environment is having a single image. And that single image, whether we're in New York today, whether you're an account manager in New York who works from home, or you're at a call center in, say, Morocco, it doesn't matter. Your device has a single image. And that really helps you manage the cost. So it's a good opportunity to exploit those, cost drivers within your environment as well. And I think based upon where you started and where you're going, that dictates the pace. But I think there's a lot of excitement around it, and certainly there's a lot of interest. And this isn't a Dell thing. I think the industry recognizes there's a sort of backlog of upgrades. Yeah. I think people are using this to leapfrog a number of technologies.
All right, that was Dell CIO Robin Johnson being interviewed by Bob Evans, the Senior Vice President and Senior Editor for Information Week. Now over to Chris Minaugh for talking about the Dell landscape and our migration. Chris, over to you.
Hi, this is Warren Byle with Dell IT, and I'm sitting here with my co-worker, Chris Minaugh, and we both work on the user-centric solutions team for Dell, and are part of the team that has put together the Windows 7 deployment for Dell internally. So let me talk a little bit about the Dell's landscape a little bit, and Chris and I will kind of go back and forth through this presentation and take bits and pieces. The first thing is Dell has about 110,000 client machines globally, and right now we have mostly XP, but our Windows 7 adoption is growing rapidly. You see there we're about 37,000. I checked earlier, we're almost at 38,000 today. A few Vista and just a smattering of Linux. As far as the desktops to notebooks, I think we're just over the halfway mark with notebooks, and that's growing rapidly internally at Dell, which is probably what we're seeing at other places also. A little bit on our management platform. We use Microsoft's System Center Configuration Manager 2007 as our global infrastructure for managing all of those clients. We use the operating system deployment function within Configuration Manager to deploy out Windows 7. And we'll get into the details of that a little bit later. It gives us a dynamic build process, which we've been able to leverage with great success. It also allows us to deploy other things to our end users without having them to be administrators on their machine. And it helps us standardize our software deployment. of which currently is over 2,000 applications.
Okay, and this is Chris Minaugh here. I'm going to go over this slide very fast here, but what this slide is just really kind of illustrating is Dell's involvement with Windows 7 since its inception. In fact, really since before its inception. As we can see from the timeline, we were actually involved with Windows 7 from an M3 date, which is pretty much pre-beta. During that period back in December of 2008, we had a limited client count, mostly our IT folks kicking it around, making sure that our processes were working and making sure that the big core items that we have, that we offer up to our customers, still work. As we see, we go through January of 2009 when Beta 1 was released. We had about 500 clients, about 1,000 on RC1. And 2 weeks after RTM, we actually had an RTM image that was available for consumption in our enterprise environment. And at that point, we had probably about 2,600 systems up on Win 7. As we looked at in the previous slide, we have about 37.5 clients today. That number increases daily. In fact, we typically add, and we're pretty steady on this number, we add probably about 1,000 PCs up on Windows 7 each week. I'm going to switch it over to Warren here.
Let's talk a little bit about the deployment tools. I mentioned that we use Microsoft's Configuration Manager, and what that allows us to do is we're trying to standardize all of our processes because that's just makes it more efficient, more cost effective, and so we are able to build the base reference build on Configuration Manager, and we transitioned that off of Microsoft's VDD and MDT, which we did use in the early stages of the beta. We used MDT to make those frequent changes to the builds available. So we use Configuration Manager to build the reference build, and then we take that and we use Configuration Manager to capture that base WIM that goes into our dynamic task sequence or build process. And from there, we can customize it as needed for a lot of other scenarios, regional scenarios, deployment scenarios, and we'll get into those a little bit later.
Yeah, and just to add on to something that Warren had mentioned, I know that we have a tendency in the IT field to really get taken down with some of the acronyms. The MDT, Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, this is a freeware that's available from Microsoft, and it's pretty much just an imaging provisioning solution in essence.